My name is Cynthia Milián. I'm an attorney with the Powers Law Group. I am board certified attorney in immigration and nationality law. And today we're going to talk about habeas corpus. So this is something that I'm sure many of you have heard about, this term floating around. So we're going to discuss what it is and how it is that it affects individuals that are here in the United States seeking to get released from immigration detention center. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what services we offer here in our firm. So a little bit about me. Like I mentioned, I'm board certified. I've been licensed since 2018. I've worked in primarily immigration work for all of my time as an attorney. And, there's a list of different achievements that I've accomplished throughout the years there. So what is a habeas corpus? All right. So imagine that your family member is stuck in detention center and no one is telling you how long they're going to be there, when they are going to get released. The laws have all said that the individual can no longer get released while their immigration case is pending, right? So then steps in habeas corpus, which is a legal tool that forces the government to answer why it is justifiable for that individual or family member to remain detained. A habeas corpus, what it literally means is you shall have the body. So the government must bring the detained person before a judge, in theory, right, and justify their detention, except that you would do this all in writing. And so where does the power come for us to be able to file these? So it's something that's constitutional, and that we can file, right? It doesn't go before an immigration judge, but it goes to a different body of law, a different area, a different jurisdiction, where they can look at the facts and see if that individual is being justifiably detained. So if, let's say you have an individual, they were going to work, they were pulled over by the police and then sent to ICE, now in a detention center, and there's been a lot of case law. First we saw in matter of Cooley, then we saw Buen Rostro. There's just a lot of back and forth on whether or not an immigration judge has the authority to give an individual a bond. So let's say they don't, right? Based on the current case law, then where can you file this? So you would file this habeas corpus in the district where the individual is detained. So here at Powers Law Group, we are licensed and admitted to practice in all 4 different counties or 4 different districts. So there's a northern, eastern, southern, and western, and we filed in all of those. And it depends where it is that the individual is detained, because then you would file the habeas in that district or that location. So not everyone that is detained here in Texas go to the same district, but even within each district, there's other different sub offices where you would file it. So for example, if you have a family detained in Carnes or in Dilley or Port Isabel, or here in the Houston Contract Detention Center, each one is going to be, it's going to be in a different district. So it could be northern, it could be southern. And we've had an opportunity to file multiple of these in the last couple of months, where we have an idea now of which judge may be able to get this habeas before them and how they may rule in these habeas requests. So a lot of the times, and this is more for practitioners, right? Whether or not you have to exhaust other avenues before you come to a judge. So basically you have to go through the normal channels first of going before an immigration judge before you go to the federal court. Usually, right, if an individual is eligible for, right, you request a bond hearing before an immigration judge. If it's denied, then you appeal it to the Board of Immigration Appeals, and then you wait for their decision. However, there are ways, right, and we've seen more and more that you can skip these steps, right, if it would be pointless, right, if your efforts would be futile, if you file it and you know that the judge has no jurisdiction based on the case law at the moment when you file it, or if you know it's going to take too long, right? If, let's say, your client or your family member has been detained for 4 or 5 months now or less, and they already have a final hearing coming up, then you need to act quickly, right? So then would be a good point for you to file this habeas. So there are different scenarios in which you can file this, right? The most common one is if, let's say, a person has been in the US for over 15 years and they get picked up on their way to work, and they've never been before an immigration judge before, then that's a typical case where you can file it, because under current law, that individual is not eligible for bond hearing, right? So that's one scenario. Another time it could be if, let's say, a person has been, let's say if a person has gone through the whole process, has been issued a removal order, and the case has been finalized, but they've remained stuck in detention and they can't deport them to their country of birth or their country of nationality, and more than 6 months have passed, then you can file it under a Zadvius case, right? Where basically you're telling the government you're unreasonably taking too long. There's no reasonable possibility that this person can get will get sent back to their country. So we're asking for you to release them. That is another alternative. You can also do it if, for example, there's a medical emergency. If the individual has been ordered removed and has been going to ICE check-ins, and they were picked up at an ICE check-in and nothing has really changed. There hasn't really been a change in circumstance other than their new practice to detain people at ICE check-ins. So these are several different scenarios in which you can file a habeas. So what do you usually need, right? And this is just a brief overview so that you know what it is. But as always, we recommend that you consult with us before we're going forward and seeing if you qualify for this. But if, let's say, you are ready to go, you have a family member that's detained and you want to schedule a consultation, or you're ready to file this habeas, usually what we need are, when was this person detained? Where were they detained? Have they been before an immigration judge before? Has an immigration judge issued any decision? So for all of that, there's documentation, right? Does this person have any ties to the community? How many times have they been apprehended by ICE? Do they have any medical conditions or any special circumstances that we need to mention for this individual to get released, right? If, for example, this person has been going to ICE check-ins for the last 20 years, do you have the paperwork to show that they have been diligently attending those check-ins on the stated date? So those are all very important documents. Also, a document called a notice to appear, or short for an NTA, that shows how this person was categorized when they entered the U.S. and under which provision they're being held, so that they can try to get removed. And so once we have all those documents, once we know where they're detained, then we can better assess and try to get this filed relatively quickly, so that we can get the habeas before a judge and have the judge issue the government order so they can show cause and try to justify, why it is that this person is being detained, and then go from there. So some key takeaways, right? The habeas corpus, it forces the government to justify their detention. We file all over Texas, like I said, in each of the 4 districts. Timing is everything, right? Depending on where your family member's case is at, right? 6 months or more, right, post removal, then you can consider a habeas. But every case is different. There's no one size fits all with a habeas. We want to evaluate all of that in a consultation before you can go forward and file this, because it is only $5 to file the habeas, but it can be costly, right? If you hire an attorney and then having to respond to all of this, it's a very complex area of litigation. So you certainly want to make sure that you speak to an attorney that is well versed in these filings and kind of has some general awareness of how these judges are ruling in the different areas that they're practicing. In some cases, we know that if a specific habeas falls before a specific judge, we know that it's almost going to be 24 hours before that is dismissed. So the only reason we know this is because we filed this multiple times to get that understanding. So make sure that you speak to someone or speak to us, right, that has knowledge and understanding of what the habeas is, whether your family member qualifies, and if this is the best option or alternative so that your family member can get out of detention center while their case remains pending. And as always, this is our contact information. You can follow us on several different social media platforms, and our number of the firm is 713-589-2085 if you want to give us a call. Or you can email us so that you can schedule your consultation so that we can talk to you as soon as possible to see if you are eligible for habeas. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.